Think of a time when you had your most embarrassing moment ever, your biggest mistake, your greatest regret. Now, I don't know if this time was publicized for the world to know, but allow me to share mine with you now. Several years ago, I was a single mom living well beyond her means in the middle of a recession, already a recipe for disaster. I was trying to build a business while in graduate school and also managing the day-to-day activities for a very active teenage son. And the bills were piling up high. They were piling up fast. And I was a little nervous. And I knew that I needed to get a job, so I did. Went out and got that full-time job, but I didn't get it fast enough. And it wasn't bringing in enough. And I got really nervous. So I shared my situation with someone who I considered to be my friend. A few days later, this friend calls me back and says, I have an opportunity for you. She said I could share my name on an insurance claim that didn't belong to me. Immediately, I told her, no way, I wanted no parts of that. But as the days wore on and the eviction notices came in and the car repossession notices showed up, fear and desperation also flooded in. I called her back and I said, add my name. Now, a few years later, that bad decision came back to haunt me, and I was forced to answer for my crime. So I pled guilty to a felony for insurance fraud. I was sentenced to probation and restitution. And every time I have to say that out loud, it literally takes the wind right out of me. I still live with that shame. You see, I learned very quickly that although you may pay your debt back to society, your slate is just not clean. I lost a job that I loved, and it became very difficult to find a job in my field. It even became difficult to find a place to live. So I joined a program for restored citizens. Now, restored citizens, that's a title given to individuals who have been incarcerated and they've returned back to the community, changing their narrative and either in the process of or have successfully changed their life for the better. Now, we're moving away from that title and we're moving to a title called Justice-Involved Individuals. See, I think that one's a little more inclusive. That means these are individuals who have faced the criminal justice system at some point for some reason as a defendant. And in this program, we talked about the traumas that lead people to making bad decisions. They also helped with employment. And I heard the stories of other people, stories that sounded a lot like mine and some that sounded a lot worse. And even though I had not been incarcerated, here we all were in the same boat. Today, I want to talk to you about recidivism. See, now that's a term that I bet a lot of you aren't familiar with, and that's mainly because we just don't talk about it like we should. See, recidivism is the tendency of someone who has committed a crime in the past to reoffend. And recidivism is not just the problem of the person with the criminal background. It's all of our problem. You see, when crime happens in your neighborhood, it diminishes the value of your property. It also impacts how safe you feel in your neighborhoods. And if we can reduce recidivism rates, we lessen the burden on the incarceration system, taxpayers, the community, and families as a whole. There are a lot of reasons why people offend or reoffend. We'll talk about that in a second. But I want to tell you about one of my clients that I've had the pleasure of working with recently, and his name is JT. Now, at the age of 19, JT was a father and a drug dealer. And because of that career choice, he ended up getting arrested and sentenced to 15 years in prison. 15 years in prison. Now, when he was released 15 years later, at the age of 34, JT would be the first one to tell you that he still had this mindset of a 19-year-old in the streets. So he returned back to doing what he had always done. So he was rearrested and sentenced to a second term. Now, this next time, though, that he was in prison, he learned of the death of his daughter. She died of an overdose of heroin. And JT felt that this was his karma because he once sold heroin. So he decided in that moment that he was going to change his life, and he got involved in every program and got every certification that he could. And once he was released, he continued along in that path and got involved in more programs. He knew he wanted to be an entrepreneur because he knew how to be an entrepreneur, right? But this time, he was going to do it the right way. And he got a certification, got a CDL certification. He wanted to become a trucker. He did it, but unfortunately, he was not able to get hired by any of the big trucking companies. No one would hire him because of his background. And that became very discouraging for him. But he stayed steadfast, and eventually a small trucking company did hire JT, and now his life has changed forever. See, there are a lot of reasons why people reoffend. Now, some of it is due to bad decision-making, poor coping skills. They just don't understand the long-term effects that bad decisions can have. But there's also a linkage between poor education and incarceration. Right now, across this country, 80% of all males incarcerated do not have a high school diploma. But those that have a higher education or have acquired some sort of trade, they are less likely to reoffend. But then there's the problem of not being able to get financial aid depending upon the type of convictions you may have. And of course, poverty, unemployment, underemployment, all of those things are factors that tend to be at the top of the list as well. But see, I believe that if someone has truly changed their mindset and they've done the hard work and they've paid their debt back to society, they should get a second chance. Because if they don't, they will feel that they have no other options but to reoffend. Now, you may be thinking, well, I don't own a business, so how can I help? The truth is, we all can be advocates. Look, if you do own a business, I implore you to hire a justice-involved individual when you can. If you have a job, go to your HR department. Ask them, what is the policy pertaining to hiring someone with a criminal background? And if they tell you that they just can't, challenge them. Ask them why, and then share with them the benefits of doing so. Look, if you have a place where you can allow someone to lay their head temporarily while they get on their feet, do that. Look, we all can do something. Now, when we started this conversation, I asked you all, what was your greatest mistake ever? What if you were reduced to that one moment in time. If that were to happen, your skills, your talents, your gifts, your dreams would not be realized. If you were minimalized to that moment only and defined by that bad decision, would that be fair? Look, we all deserve a second chance. Our community deserves one as well. Thank you.